When I saw my mother-in-law soaking wet, I couldn't resist. It would have been a sin to waste the opportunity. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Infidelity Stories, where today, I'll share with you how my first experience with another woman unfolded. Many will judge me, but it was with my own mother-in-law. My name is Marina, I'm 24 years old, and I work as a photographer in downtown Sao Paulo. My husband's name is Caesar, he's 26, a real estate agent, and we've been married for 2 years. My life changed completely when I met Clara, my mother-in-law and Caesar's mother. She is an incredible woman, with a natural charm that has fascinated me since the first day we met. She's also highly intelligent, working as a lawyer in a downtown office. After the death of her last husband, Clara made the brave decision to come out to everyone as a lesbian, stating that she wouldn't marry again and would live her life as she wished, without hiding. Clara's courage and determination were what initially attracted me to her. Her strength and the way she handled life, even in the face of adversity, made me increasingly captivated by her. However, not everyone in the family accepted Clara's revelation. Well, my husband has 2 brothers, and both reacted negatively. They couldn't accept their mother's choice and gradually distanced themselves from her. The once close-knit family began to turn their backs on Clara, leaving her isolated. The incomprehension and prejudice left her alone in many moments, which only increased my desire to be by her side and support her. I decided to talk to my husband and suggested that we invite Clara to spend more time with us. He agreed, and soon, almost every weekend, Clara was at our house. We would watch movies together, go shopping, or simply enjoy each other's company. Her presence brought a new energy to our home, something I couldn't ignore. Before I continue with this incredible tale of betrayal, please subscribe to the channel and leave a like. I loved these occasions, but especially the moments when it was just the 2 of us without my husband. These moments were special. We would take long walks in the park, talk about life, and share secrets. Clara had a unique way of making me feel understood and valued. Something I didn't find with anyone else. Since we were very close, I shared everything with her, without filters. One day, while we were sitting in the living room watching a soap opera, the atmosphere was relaxed and comfortable. I couldn't shake the curiosity about Clara's choice to be with women, so I decided to take the opportunity to ask. I asked Clara why she made that choice. She looked at me with an understanding smile and began to explain. She talked about the emptiness she felt after her husband's death and how she met a woman who changed her perspective. She said that a woman's touch is softer, the kiss sweeter, and the scent more subtle. Clara explained that in intimate moments, a woman knows how to drive another woman wild with just her tongue. As she spoke, I felt increasingly intrigued and captivated. Clara's words echoed in my mind, and curiosity turned into desire. I took a deep breath and gathered courage. While we were still sitting in the living room watching the soap opera, I looked at Clara and said, "Clara, I've always wanted to be with a woman since I was younger. I won't lie to you, I'm here to tell the truth. I've thought about being with women before but never had the chance." She looked at me surprised for a moment, but then a warm smile appeared on her face. "Seriously, Marina? I never imagined." I nodded, trying to hide my shyness. "Yes, I've always been curious, but I never had the opportunity or courage to explore it." Clara moved a little closer, her eyes shining with a mix of surprise and interest. "It's normal to have these curiosities, Marina. Sometimes life leads us down paths we never imagined." I felt very embarrassed as Clara approached. My heart was beating so fast it felt like it would leap out of my chest. There was something in the air, a palpable tension that surrounded us. I don't know why, maybe instinct or pure curiosity, but suddenly I lunged forward and kissed her quickly. It was an uncontrollable impulse. Our lips touched for a brief moment, and the heat of the kiss made me feel a whirlwind of emotions. Clara was surprised, her eyes wide, but soon I saw a gleam of understanding and desire in them. "Sorry," I murmured, feeling my face burn with embarrassment. I don't know what came over me. Clara, still with that understanding smile, just shook her head. "It's okay, Marina. Sometimes we need to follow our instincts," and then she kissed me again, slowly. I could smell the sweet scent of her perfume up close. The way she moved her tongue in my mouth, Her touch, everything was softer and more delightful, giving me goosebumps every second. When we finally pulled away, we were both breathless. Clara looked at me intensely, her eyes reflecting the desire we both felt. "Marina, she began, but I interrupted her with a shy smile. "It's okay," I said, trying to calm my racing heart. "I wanted this as much as you did, from that moment, I knew our relationship would never be the same." I walked Clara to her room, and before saying goodbye, we kissed again. The touch of her lips on mine was magical. Afterward, I returned to my room, where my husband was already asleep, and lay down beside him, trying to process everything that had happened. The next day, my husband went to work early, and Clara and I decided to enjoy the day together. We went to the movies to watch a romance film. When we got there, we realized the theater was empty, just the two of us. Silence reigned during the movie, but there was a tension between us. As the movie progressed, the atmosphere heated up. The proximity and privacy of the setting enveloped us in a sensation of adrenaline and desire. We kissed passionately, and Clara began to touch me in ways I had never experienced before. There, in the darkness of the empty theater, I surrendered completely to her. Every touch, every kiss was intensified by the forbidden environment. Clara made me feel things I had never felt before, driving me wild with her tongue in seconds. I couldn't hold back, she knew exactly how to use what she had, after we left the theater, our hearts were racing, a mixture of nervousness and euphoria. After the movie, we went to a diner to grab something to eat. While we waited for our orders, Clara looked at me with a serious expression. "Marina, we need to talk about what's been happening," she said, her voice low and full of concern. "What we're doing is completely wrong. You're my daughter-in-law, my own son's wife." I listened to her attentively, feeling the weight of her words. Clara continued, "I only did this because I've always been open-minded and believe that everyone should follow their desires. But Caesar would never understand this. He would be devastated if he found out." I nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I know, Clara. All of this is very complicated, but I couldn't help what I felt. It's like something stronger was pulling us together." Clara sighed, running her hand through her hair. "We need to stop this, Marina. As difficult as it is, we have to think about the consequences. We can't keep hurting Caesar like this." I agreed, feeling a whirlwind of emotions inside me. I knew Clara was right, but part of me didn't want to give up what we were experiencing. Maybe I was too lonely, or maybe I wanted to live a new adventure, We returned home in silence, each lost in her own thoughts. The sadness weighed on me, and Clara noticed. At that moment, I knew something had changed irreversibly between us. That was the last weekend Clara spent with us. The decision to stop everything affected both of us deeply. I had really fallen in love with my mother-in-law. Time passed, and our routine returned to normal, but there was a feeling of loss that I couldn't ignore, Then one day, Clara showed up with a new girlfriend. When I saw her, I was surprised and a little shocked. She was incredibly similar to me, from head to toe, even the way she styled her hair was identical to mine, I swear. Caesar noticed that something had changed between me and Clara. He mentioned that we used to be inseparable, always together, and asked if we had fought. I smiled and tried to reassure him. "Everything's fine, love," I said, trying to sound convincing. "I'm just giving Clara and her new girlfriend some space. She might be a little jealous, you know how it is." Caesar seemed to accept my explanation, but I knew he still had doubts. The truth was more complex than he could imagine. After the intense experience with Clara, I realized that something inside me had changed. The attraction I felt for women, especially those around my mother-in-law's age, grew stronger. I started discreetly looking for other women who reminded me of her, particularly older ones. I found myself observing these women in places I frequented, like cafes and gyms, searching for the same security and maturity Clara had. It was almost as if I were trying to relive, in some way, that special connection, These new experiences helped me understand more about myself and my desires. However, despite meeting new people and experiencing new emotions, none of them could completely fill the void that Clara had left in me. Perhaps it was because she was the first woman I had ever kissed, Or maybe it was the intensity of the feelings I had for her. I know some will judge me, but what can I do? Desire spoke louder. I love my husband and always will, despite everything. I want to make that clear. However, I believe that people should live life to the fullest, follow their instincts, and pursue their desires without fear of what others might think. Life is too short to be confined by norms and expectations that don't make us happy. I discovered a side of myself that I didn't know existed, and despite all the complications, it brought me a new perspective, one that made me value each moment, each experience, and understand that love can manifest in many forms. After that last weekend when Clara stayed at our house, everything in my life changed irreversibly. I tried to move on, focusing on my work as a photographer, but every click of the camera seemed like a cruel reminder of the intense moments I had shared with Clara. The constant presence of Clara in my thoughts was a reminder of the forbidden desire that burned within me, a fire I tried, in vain, to extinguish. Days dragged on, and Clara's absence began to affect me in ways I hadn't expected. I became increasingly introspective, lost in my own thoughts, trying to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions that consumed me. No matter how much I tried to focus on work or my marriage, the memory of Clara, of our shared touches and kisses, was always there. Like a shadow following me everywhere. One afternoon, while organizing my photos in the studio, I received an unexpected phone call. It was Clara, her voice serene but filled with urgency. "Marina, we need to talk," she said, her tone unmistakable. My heart raced as I agreed to meet her at a discreet cafe in the city center, far from familiar eyes. When I arrived at the cafe, I saw Clara with Vanessa, her new girlfriend. The shock was immediate for me. Vanessa was practically a replica of me, from the wavy hair to the way she dressed. Feeling a mix of jealousy and curiosity, I struggled to hide my emotions. Clara introduced Vanessa politely, but there was a palpable tension in the air. As they talked, I tried to focus, but my mind was elsewhere. Every gesture Clara made, every word she spoke, seemed laden with meaning. I wondered what Clara's true intentions were in inviting me to this meeting. It was then that Clara mentioned something that left me even more intrigued. "I'm thinking about selling the house where I lived with my children," she said, trying to sound casual. She explained that she wanted a fresh start in a place where she wouldn't constantly be reminded of the past. I knew the house well and had deep memories there, so I offered to help Clara organize everything for the sale. "I can take photos of the house for you, Clara. That might help speed up the sale process," I suggested, trying to conceal the pain I felt at the thought of Clara distancing herself even further from my life. Clara accepted my offer, and the following weekend, I went to her house to start the work. Vanessa was there but seemed uncomfortable with my presence. As I photographed the rooms, I noticed Clara watching me from a distance, her gaze filled with unspoken emotions. When Vanessa left to go shopping, Clara approached me, and both our hearts began to race. "Do you really think we can move on?" Clara asked, her voice trembling slightly. With a heavy heart, I replied, "I don't know, Clara. But I know we have to try." The tension between us was undeniable, and before we realized it, we were kissing again, as if time had stopped since our last encounter. The kiss was full of longing and repressed desire, but it was abruptly interrupted when we heard Vanessa's car approaching. We quickly pulled apart, each trying to control our emotions. After that encounter, I tried to carry on with my life, but something had changed within me. The intensity of the kiss, the touch of Clara, everything felt even stronger now that we had decided to go our separate ways. I found myself at an emotional crossroads, torn between my love for Caesar and the overwhelming desire for Clara. Feeling lost, I began to avoid visits from Clara and Vanessa, finding excuses not to be present when they came around. However, fate had other plans. One night, after a photography event, I ran into Vanessa at a local bar. Vanessa, visibly upset and already having had a few drinks, began to open up. "I know what happened between you and Clara," Vanessa confessed, looking me in the eyes. "I can feel that there's something between you two, something she never had with me." Vanessa's words hit me like a blow. I tried to deny it, but the pain in Vanessa's eyes was evident. "I love her, but I know she'll never see me the way she sees you," Vanessa continued before leaving the bar, leaving me alone with my tumultuous thoughts. That conversation deeply affected me. The inner conflict intensified, as it was no longer just about my own feelings, but about the impact I was having on the lives of others. Feeling guilty, I decided to distance myself from Clara once and for all. I blocked Clara's number, avoided places where I might run into her, and tried to focus on my marriage with Caesar, but the ghost of Clara was always present. Time passed, and I thought I was finally beginning to move on. However, one cold winter morning, I received a letter from Clara. It was a final goodbye. Clara explained that she was moving to another city with Vanessa, seeking a new life, far from everything that reminded her of the complicated past. In the letter, Clara also confessed that, although she loved Vanessa, she could never forget what she had with me. She wrote that the house would always be a symbol of everything we had shared, but that now she needed a fresh start, both for herself and for Vanessa. Reading the letter brought tears to my eyes, but also a strange sense of relief. I knew this was the goodbye we both needed in order to move forward. I kept the letter in a box where I stored my most cherished memories, knowing that, although I might never see Clara again, that story would always be an indelible part of who I was. In the months that followed, life continued, but I was never quite the same. I tried to salvage my marriage, but the memory of Clara was always there, like a phantom of what could have been. I began to question my choices, who I really was, and what I wanted out of life. Sometimes, I would wake up in the middle of the night, sweating, my heart racing, thinking of Clara, of everything we had lived through and everything we had lost. Determined to understand more about myself, I began to open up more to Caesar. I told him about my doubts, about how I was confused about my feelings and about the life we were leading. Caesar, though hurt, tried to be understanding. He knew that something had changed in me since that last weekend with Clara, but he never imagined the depth of what was happening. We decided to go to couples therapy in an attempt to save our marriage and reconnect. The sessions were difficult, filled with painful revelations, but also necessary. I began to realize that, although I loved Caesar, there was something inside me that could no longer be ignored: my attraction to women, my need to explore this side of my sexuality that had been awakened by Clara. Caesar, for his part, struggled to understand and accept the changes in me. He loved me deeply, but knew that, for our marriage to survive, both of us would have to make concessions and changes. Gradually, we began to find a new balance, a new way of being together that allowed me to explore who I really was without destroying what we had built. During this process, I began to get involved with other women, always with Caesar's knowledge and consent. It was a phase of discovery and growth for me, but also full of challenges. Each new experience brought me back to Clara, and I found myself comparing every woman I met to her, always searching for the same intensity, the same connection we had. But no matter how hard I tried, I could never find something that compared to what I had experienced with Clara. One day, while organizing my things, I found Clara's letter again. Upon reading it, I realized that, despite all the new experiences and discoveries, I still hadn't fully gotten over what I felt for Clara. It was then that I decided to write a response letter, even though I knew I would probably never send it. I wrote about my internal struggles, the new people I had met, but also about how Clara was still an important part of my life, even from a distance. This letter, which I kept next to the first one, represented closure for me. I knew I needed to move on, but also knew I couldn't erase the past. I placed the letters in a special box, as a symbol of everything I had learned and lived through. And, over time, I began to accept that Clara would always be a part of my story, but that now I was ready to move on, with or without her. I continued my journey of self-discovery, but now with a new understanding of myself and what I wanted out of life. And although the memory of Clara was still present, I began to see it as a source of strength rather than an open wound. Life continued its course, with new challenges and new joys, and I finally felt at peace with myself. My story is a testament to the complexity of love, desire, and the human need to understand and accept oneself. I learned that, no matter how complicated and full of uncertainties life may be, the most important thing is to follow your heart and live according to your true passions, even if it means making difficult choices and facing the consequences of your actions. In the end, I discovered that true happiness comes from being true to yourself, regardless of the challenges that may arise along the way. Before you leave, please remember to subscribe.